Level up your sporty wardrobe with this cycling shrug. Hi, I'm Christina and I am a digital pattern maker who also loves to cycle. I have made so many of these cycling shrugs to keep the sun off my shoulders and arms that I am so excited to share the pattern with you. You can get this pattern for yourself at my store linked down below. Let's go ahead and stitch one up together. I'm going to be projecting my pattern out, and I'm going to use projectorpattern.com to calibrate and project my pattern. The first thing I need to do is calibrate, and it is a super simple thing to do. All you have to do is choose the size of grid you want to size it to, and then drag and drop the edges of the grid on the screen to match the grid on your table. It is a fantastic tool, and if you have not yet tried it out, I would highly recommend it. Then once I am satisfied with my grid, I am going to upload my pattern piece. Next is time to lay out my fabric. I found this super cute UV protectant ice cream cone and ice cream bar fabric that I am so excited to make this cycling shrug out of. I am going to be cutting out 2 pieces of each. Therefore, I will be putting my fabric on the fold and cutting them both out at the same time. One thing to note is this fabric is directional specific. Whatever way I want those snow cones to lay, face up ideally, I need to be paying close attention as I cut out all of the different pattern pieces. Now that my sleeve is cut out, I'm going to cut the front and back. I also decided not to put the back on a seam, but to put it on the fold. With the projector, I lined up the pattern on a line on my grid, and then I am lining up the fabric with that line. I'm doing this because my projector is projecting at an angle. So when you get close like that, sometimes the projector line looks at a slightly different place because of where the fabric is laying in the world. Once I am happy, I'm going to cut out my back piece, still ensuring that my ice cream cones are facing the correct direction. Because, oh my goodness, they are too cute to have them going the wrong direction. The next pieces I need to cut out are the 2 fronts. Now, I am going to do these one at a time to hopefully save as much fabric as possible. This will make it so that I can use this fabric to create maybe some cycling sleeves for my husband, or I could make another fitted cycling shrug for myself. When you only cut out one piece at a time, you do have to remember to flip the pattern before you cut out the second piece, or the pattern will not be facing the right direction, and you will have sadly wasted some cute fabric. Make sure that you have flipped your pattern when you are cutting them out one at a time. The final piece I need to cut out is the binding piece. I do not have a pattern of this in the pattern I was working with, but I do know how long and wide the rectangle I want to cut is. I'm going to fold my fabric in half, use a quilting ruler to square off the one side. Then I'm going to measure out the 1.5-inch rectangle I want and cut the other side. This way, all my binding will be done in one go. This binding will finish my cuffs and all the way around my cycling shrug. Now it is time to move over to the serger and start putting our fitted cycling shrug together. I'm going to start by grabbing my 2 fronts, and I am going to have to pay attention later when I'm binding it that I actually cover these cuts that I did not do a very good job of missing when I was cutting out my pattern. Next, I'm going to line up my shoulder seams. I'm going to take the tip of my shoulder seam of my front, match it up to the tip of my shoulder seam of my back, and sew along the top edge from the shoulder point into the neckline. Then I'm going to get my other front piece, and I'm going to match up the neckline point on both the front and the back, and I'm going to sew out to the shoulder tip, ensuring that the edges of the fabric are lined up. There we go. Now we're going to clip our tails, and we're going to move on to the sleeve. I'm going to start by cutting the binding to the length of the sleeve of the hem. Then I'm going to fold it in half to line it up with the hem of the sleeve. I'm then going to start sewing, and this is where you can choose to either pull the binding slightly to get a tighter fit around the wrist, or you can just sew it straight on like I did to have a little bit more of a relaxed fit. Then it's time to repeat on the other sleeve. Now that you have the sleeves hemmed, it's now time to inset them. So you're going to want to line up the corner of the armscye with the corner of the sleeve cap. Then we're going to serge all the way up and over to fully inset the sleeve. And there we have it. Check it out, looks good. Then you're going to want to repeat on the other side. The next thing you're going to want to do after that, though, is we're going to sew the underarm seam from the underarm of the bodice. We're going to do it all in one go. I'm going to line up the hem of the bodice, and I'm going to sew all the way down to the hem of the sleeve. When I pass over the points where the 4 pattern pieces meet, I want to make sure that they are lined up nicely. And I also find it's really handy to be able to have one seam allowance facing one way and the other seam allowance facing the other way. This will create less bulk and make everything easier in the long run. When I get finally down to the hem, I am going to do a back stitch on the serger. To do a back stitch on a serger, I'm going to go ahead and serge off of my piece by just 1 stitch. You want to try to get as close as possible. Then I'm going to make sure that my cutting blade is turned off. I'm going to flip my pattern piece over, and I'm going to serge back up just for about an inch or so, and I'm going to serge off and clip. And that's how you can backstitch on a serger. Now it's time to move on to binding the edge of my cycling shrug. I'm going to take the long piece of binding that I have, fold it in half, and line it up with the opposite side that I have not yet sewn the underarm seam of yet. This will help it create a cleaner line in the long run. I'm going to then start serging all the way around while pulling my binding slightly. I would like a little bit of tension to help pull in and snug that cycling shrug to me. So I just want a little bit of tension as I work all the way around from the hem up and around the neckline, and then back down across the back and back to the opposite hem that is still open. This is one of those really great ways to finish knits that looks very nice and is super, super easy to accomplish. And here we go. Then I'm going to clip my binding off so it's even with the edge of my fabric. Now it's time to sew the final underarm seam, and I'm going to do a back stitch on both the beginning and the end of this stitch. I'm going to start a little ways, about an inch away from the hem, headed in the opposite direction than I am planning to go. Then I'm going to sew off of the cycling shrug by 1 stitch. I will then flip my pattern over, ensure that my cutting blade is off, and then start stitching again from there and go all the way to the other end of the sleeve. I do want to make sure as I pass the 4 points at the underarm that I am having one of the seams go one way, the other seam go the other way, so that creates less bulk in the long run, as well as making sure that those points are all nicely lined up. Then at the opposite end, I'm going to do another back stitch. I'm going to sew right off of my sleeve hem by 1 stitch. I'm going to flip my pattern around, ensure that my blade is not cutting and is turned off, and then I'm going to sew about 1 inch back up the seam and then sew off and clip my tails. And there you have it. Our cycling shrug is ready to try on. Let's try it on and check it out. This fabric just makes me want to dance. It's so cute. Now you've got a unique sun shrug that fits like a glove and looks good in motion. If you're interested in the pattern, make sure to grab it using the link down below and sew up your own out of any kind of beautiful fabric that you love. Don't forget to tag me when you make it. I always love seeing what people are creating. I look forward to seeing you in some of my other videos. Keep sewing, keep moving, and keep creating. Take care.